Is that lawyer speak, or is he talking about cock? If you've ever had a new and brilliant idea, Kevin, who wrote today's video, I have brilliant ideas every day, like the idea for this channel. You might have considered getting yourself a patent on that idea to allow you 10 to 20 years of exclusive rights to profit off your invention. I don't think I can patent this, can I? They'll be like, what are you trying to patent, bag boy? Get real. No one's going to steal this, bag boy, even if they wanted to. It's shit.
Things could be worse. I could be that guy.
Research into developing worthwhile innovations can take a lot of time and money, and without the exclusivity granted by patents, people would be disincentivized from ever creating anything new. Why waste your own time and money developing new technology when you can let somebody else do all of the heavy lifting and then just profit by copying their homework? Yes! Wait, that sounds good. Copying homework is the way to go. Or maybe, allegedly, if you're a child watching, go do your homework and do it yourself. Definitely don't flick to the back. We had a book in school.
And now, as promised, the tangent.
Like a maths book that had the answers in the back. And I'm like, they're like, it's an honor system. I'm like, fuck the honor system.
Hey, you're ruining it for the rest of us!
Or maybe you're just a patent troll with no intention of actually creating a product. Instead, you want to patent vaguely worded technological processes that could potentially allow you to... that could potentially allow you to sue people rather than get a real job. But trolls aside, patents are generally considered to be an overall good thing for society. The potential financial rewards help drive innovation, and to date there have been nearly 12 million patents granted in the United States. Holy shit, isn't that like one patent, like 10, it's like 1 in 30 people have a patent or something? That's a lot. I mean, I'm sure like Apple file like 9,000 a year for every possible thing that anyone in their company's ever come up with. Of course, not every patent can be a winner. If the percentage of patents rejected has been consistent over the last 200 plus years, which I can't guarantee, then the US has rejected nearly 8 million patents. Of those, hundreds, if not thousands, were for perpetual motion machines, to the point that the patent office won't even allow you to submit them anymore.
In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
That sounds like a cover-up, doesn't it? That sounds like big N and big oil trying to keep us all down. But sometimes horrible patents do slip through the cracks. For example, in a decision that has defied logic and baffled experts for decades, Smuckers, what the fuck is Smuckers, received a patent for their Uncrustable sandwiches. What is this? This is something very American. It's patenting some sort of sandwich.
So, none of this should cause you any ill effect. I went to a little farm in Normandy for the wheat and the lettuce and tomato, and I thoroughly examined and comforted the pig before I slaughtered it for the ham.
The patent office actually approved a patent for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with the crust cut off, something that parents have been doing for spoiled kids for decades. Yeah, Kevin, also like spoiled kids, but also when the kid's like, I won't eat it with the crust, so he's like, oh, fine, just eat something so I can go. Please, just eat it, for God's sake. Or don't. Just go hungry, I don't care, but you're not getting ice cream. Technically, the part that Smuckers claimed as novel was crimping the edges of the bread to create a pocket of food, kind of like a calzone. That's not actually novel, though. It's what Simon would refer to as a pasty, and it has been a popular food in England for 1,000 years. Wait, Kevin, do you know what a pasty is, mate? That's not what a pasty is. A pasty's made with that stuff that pies go in. Why the f can't I remember what pies go in? It's like that flour thing that they... Why the f can't I remember? Pastry!
Daddy, chill.
Pastry. Pasties are made with pastry, not bread. Imagine going to Cornwall for a Cornish pasty and they'd be like, here it is. And you're like, what is this? Oh, it's a sausage rolled in bread. And I'm like, well, that's closer to a hot dog, isn't it, you douche? It's absolutely not something that should have been patentable in 2001. To be fair, though, while allowing the patent was absurd, Uncrustable sandwiches aren't a terrible idea, and if Smuckers wants to sponsor this video, then I'll happily say that they were a brilliant idea. I'd also have to find out what Smuckers is. It's a terrible name. Smuckers. It sounds like a mix between smut and fuckers, which is just not something you really want to have in your name, is it, Smuckers? Allegedly, in my opinion. Then I'll happily say that they were a brilliant I read that already.
Professionalism.
The same cannot be said for every invention that receives a patent, however. Sometimes the ideas are horrible, useless, or downright insane. That's not to say that those patents weren't novel enough to warrant approval, they just feature things that should have never been invented. Time to die. What would you do if you knew the exact moment that you were going to die? For most people, it would be a combination of liberating and terrifying.
How long do I have to live?
Ooh, dibs on a CD player.
Yeah, it would be liberating if it was like, you got 80 more years back, boy. I'd be like, oh, dope. 130? I'll take that. No, 180 more years. 120. How the fuck old am I? Why is my math so shit? Look, I'll be old. But it could also be like 3 weeks. You'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake, really? That's not enough time? What the fuck am I... Why is... How?
Well, it's occasionally off by a few seconds, what with free will and all.
It would be great to know that anything you did, no matter how stupid, was not going to kill you until the predetermined time, but once that time grew near, a person could easily become consumed with terror and anxiety about how exactly they were going to go. Now, what if instead of just having the knowledge somewhere in the back of your mind, you could keep a handy reminder on your body of exactly how much time you had left to live, like Spawn's necroplasm counter. Except, unlike Spawn, what the fuck? What is this? Oh, this is a fictional thing that I've just never heard of. Wait, what's that movie with Justin Timberlake where he's got like a tattoo with how long he's got left to live on and he can steal time from rich people or some shit like that? In Time? That was a bad movie.
Correct.
But great concept, bad movie. You couldn't just increase your countdown every time Todd McFarlane decided he wanted more money.
I understood that reference.
This is the basis behind the patent of US 503-1161A, the life expectancy timepiece.
Behold, the death clock.
Obviously, there's no way to know exactly when you're going to die without non-existent mystical powers, but you can still make a guess. The life expectancy timepiece utilized actuarial data with adjustments based on your hereditary factors as well as information about your lifestyle. The watch would then contain your estimated life expectancy, displaying how many years, days, hours, minutes, and seconds you had left to live. To be clear, this is the only information that it displayed. The patented device did not include a regular clock display.
Yo! You being a smartass?
Even though the watch was designed to ask its owner all the pertinent questions to calculate how much time they had left, a fairly impressive feat for a watch in 1991, they still included all the actuarial tables in their patent application. The benefit of this is that the patent includes all the data used to predict your death, and I have to say I find some of the calculations a bit suspect. The baseline for each person starts with the average life expectancy for a man or woman in the United States, but the adjustments seem almost arbitrary. Well, good news, I live in Europe, where we're going to live slightly longer. Despite America spending a fortune more on its health service. Which I don't understand. Like, why? Is all that... why is American life expectancy shorter than poorer... countries that are poorer than it? Like, America's the richest, right? So why is life expectancy slightly shorter? Don't know. For example, if you're poor, you can knock 3 years off your life. Good news for me. If you're wealthy, you can also knock 3 years off. Oh, no! What the fuck? I spent all this time making money and now this? According to these tables, smoking 1 pack of cigarettes every 4 days is significantly worse than if you smoke cigars or a pipe. Well, good news, I only smoke cigars. What a giant shame. No need to break out a cigar. But as long as you regularly exercise, you can smoke 3 packs a day and the two things will cancel each other out. It's not how it works. You also get to add 1 year to your life expectancy for every year each parent lived past 70, which just doesn't make sense. According to these tables, if both your parents live until they're 90, you can expect to live until you're 118. And if you're married and live in a small town, you can bump that up to 127. But regardless of how nonsensical, no one lives that long. Has anyone ever lived to 127? But regardless of how nonsensical these calculations are, it doesn't matter. There's virtually no market for something like this. A similar product was sold on Kickstarter in 2014. What about the patent? One that actually included a local time in the display, and it barely moved 2,000 units with virtually no sales since the initial Kickstarter campaign. I'm amazed it sold 2,000, to be honest, but that's Kickstarter for you. Kickstarter, I feel like their tagline could be, where people will buy any old that might not ever be delivered. Unsurprisingly, it received mostly negative reviews as well, not because the product didn't perform as advertised, but because the owners were all disappointed at the constant reminder of how much longer they had to endure life on this godforsaken planet. Double bicycle? What does it mean? This entry is going to be a blast from the past, back all the way to 1905, and it was a big year for America. Teddy Roosevelt and the Supreme Court established the government's right to dismantle corporate monopolies.
Haven't used it since.
Las Vegas was founded, and Wilbur Wright made a 39-minute flight, the first flight to last over half an hour. But while Americans were trying to perfect the airplane, in Germany somebody was designing an entirely new vehicle to breathe new life into a boring old trick. Ever since the late 1860s, a popular circus trick was for a bicycle to loop the loop, which is sick, to be honest. I'd love to see that. Somebody would take a bike to the top of a tall ramp. Oh, wait, they're not doing it under their own steam? Well, shit, I could do that.
But you didn't.
Then they would shoot down the ramp to gain speed before entering a looped track, like a Hot Wheels car. People would look on in awe as the bike continued to drive along. This is the past for you. People in the past were impressed by any old shit. Now I'd be like, well, yeah, that's physics. That's what happens when you go fast into a loop-the-loop. Sometimes things would go wrong and the rider would fall into a net, but it's pretty simple physics, so the trick was usually an uneventful success. But after almost 4 decades, audiences were growing tired of the trick. Motorcycles existed by 1905, but they couldn't yet reach the 40 to 65 miles per hour to reach around... What? To drive around in the globe of death. Is that thing where they spin round at like 90 degrees? That is awesome, and I'd love to see that. And there really wasn't anything that could be done to make the traditional bicycle trick more exciting. It wasn't possible to get enough speed to do 2 loops in a row, and the loops couldn't really be made any bigger either. Something needed to be done to reinvigorate interest in these hackneyed performances, and German inventor Karl Lange believed he had the answer. Enter patent US 790063A. I love that you're just including all the patent numbers so we can go look them up or something, Kevin.
Because I believe in being thorough.
The double bicycle for looping the loops. Simon, I know you normally don't use your iPad for brain blaze, but I'm going to include a picture anyway if you want to check it out for how utterly ridiculous this invention was. Yeah, but Kevin, that would mean I have to go to my computer and open up the PDF and look at it, and I'm just going to imagine this double bicycle in my mind, okay? Even if Simon isn't looking at the image, I'm sure Sam and/or Lorelei has put it on the screen for the rest of you. Sam and/or Lorelei who edit these videos. Thank you, guys. What can I say except you're welcome? And yes, that is effectively just 2 bicycles welded together, and you'll be forgiven for having absolutely no clue what the purpose was supposed to serve. Reading the patent itself isn't particularly helpful either, as I'm pretty sure Carl used whatever the 1905 equivalent of Google Translate was before shipping his patent application from Germany to America. Why doesn't he just patent that shit in Germany? Like, what's he gonna do? It's 1905, what's he gonna do? Hop on a steamer and spend like 4 weeks crossing the Atlantic and be like, prepare to have your minds blown, America, I've got a double bicycle, woo! It took me several attempts to finally figure out how this invention was supposed to improve upon the classic circus trick, and the results are a bit underwhelming. The patent made several references to a mutilated track. I was struggling to read that word because it just seems so out of place. Like, why would mutilated be a word here? And we're gonna just blame 1905 Google Translate, which I initially thought was a mistranslation. However, it's less a mistranslation and more of a poor word choice. You see, performing the regular trick with his double bicycle would be pointless and stupid. The same 2 wheels would be touching the track the entire time, making the second upside-down bicycle entirely superfluous and ornamental. Well, ornamental can still be cool. Like, would I rather see a tandem bike do the loop-the-loop? Yes! I don't know why, but I would. Ornaments, yay! However, Carl's bike was designed to be driven on a modified broken loop. The trick would begin as normal, but once the rider reached the top of the loop, the track that the main bicycle was driving on would end, and there would be a second piece of track that the double bicycle would catch with a second set of wheels, allowing the rider to complete the trick while still upside down. Is that a more impressive trick? Definitely not, especially because I can't even imagine how it would end without the bike falling over. Well, it'd be very impressive if they did it without the bike falling over, which was maybe the point. It generally requires the use of your legs standing on the ground, but that wouldn't be an option here. Even if the whole contraption didn't immediately tip over, the rider's entire weight would now be supported by the little neck rest, which I'm sure is just begging to cause an injury. Yes, but the risk of injury is kind of why we find these things so impressive, isn't it? It's like we're watching the acrobats, and it's like, if they were completely safe all the time, you'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, I'd give that a crack. But the fact that they can immediately just fall into a net or possibly die, it's like, well, that's why I like it, because maybe they'll die. Which sounds crazy, because obviously I don't want to see people die, but it certainly adds to the excitement of things, doesn't it? It was like that crash in Formula One where Grosjean just slams into the barrier. And I only follow Formula One by the excellent Netflix series Drive to Survive, but a mate of mine is really into Formula One, and he's like, bro, I think I just watched someone die on live TV, because I'm sure we'll get copyright claimed the shit out of for playing this. So Lorelei or Sam, just include like the still frames of how insane this crash was.
Yes, Master.
Because you watch that and you're like, nah, like his car's just disappeared. And he's like, oh, I just hurt my hand. And you're like, oh my God, that's why it's exciting. Because you're like, they walked away. And then he stopped racing Formula One because, well, he was in, like, if someone was going to get into a crash, it would be Grosjean. But as dumb as an idea as the bicycle was, the best part of this patent is its classification. I don't know if somebody at the patent office did this as a joke, but the double bicycle for looping the loop is listed under the classification code A61H3/04, wheeled walking aids for disabled persons. The double bike is definitely not suitable for a person that is already disabled, but it does seem to pretty much guarantee to break your neck. Microsoft's Avoid Ghettos patent. Really? It all began in 2009, when Lauren Rosenberg was hit by a motorcycle while following Google Maps' walking directions on her phone. She filed a $100,000 lawsuit against Google, who had already been purchased by Microsoft at this point. What? Let me read that again. She filed a $100,000 lawsuit against Google, who had already been purchased by Microsoft at that point. Kevin, I'm pretty sure that Microsoft doesn't own Google. Am I smoking the crack right now? I feel like I'd know if my business daddy's daddy was Microsoft.
What?
YouTube is owned by Google, and Google is owned by Alphabet, which is a publicly traded company. Microsoft is separate. Okay, I don't know, that seems like a pretty big factual error, unless Kevin's going to be like, just kidding!
That's the reason Kevin got fired.
Claiming negligence by sending her down what was essentially a highway with no sidewalk. It's largely regarded as a frivolous lawsuit, in no small part because Google Maps displayed a warning at the time stating that walking directions were still in beta and further advising use caution, this route may be missing sidewalks or pedestrian paths. The lawsuit was dismissed for multiple reasons. Most crucially, the court found that Google didn't have any duty of care of responsibilities over Lauren just because she was using their app. The court also stated that it is clear that Google was not required to anticipate that a user of Google Maps service would cross the road without looking for cars. It was a big win for Google, even if the result was completely expected. But there was one minor caveat. Google had filed a motion to keep the case from being publicly disclosed, which was denied. This meant that even though they won, the idea that it was possible to attempt a lawsuit over potentially dangerous GPS directions was out in public now. Microsoft wanted to combat this eventuality before it became a serious annoyance, so they immediately got to work designing a solution to the problem. Again, I'm wondering, Microsoft I'm still thinking about that. And that solution was patent US 8090532B2, titled Pedestrian Route Production and granted in 2012. It's pretty straightforward and honestly rather pedestrian title. But at least it delivered on its promise. The patent was for a process that would create a specific pedestrian path for GPS. At its core, it was actually a really good idea. Up until that point, all GPS routing systems were designed with vehicles in mind rather than pedestrians. Making people walk along the same routes that cars had to utilize was not ideal, as people on foot can often take much more direct path from point A to point B. Yeah, I recently moved house, and for some unknown reason, Google Maps is always like, oh yeah. No, just walk around the block. Just walk around the block before. So it always adds like a good 5 minutes onto anywhere I want to go, because it just assumes I have to walk out my house, go all the way around the block, back to where my house is, and then start walking. It's like, why is that this thing? I can see the shop from my house. Why does it say it's 15 minutes away?
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
By utilizing alleys and footpaths, climbing hills and whatever else, this new system was supposed to find the fastest pedestrian shortcuts possible so that you might be able to reach your destination on foot faster than somebody could in a car. It all sounds super reasonable, so what went wrong? Well, in this case, it wasn't the idea that was crazy, it was the way that Microsoft described the methodology for their algorithm that sounded crazy. Just like vehicle routing tries to correct for things like car crashes, it does? Oh, if there's been a car crash, not if it's like a particularly dangerous... That would be a good feature. It's like, yes, I'm extremely scared. Can you avoid roads that have like certain numbers of crashes? That'd be kind of clever.
Patent pending.
Because where I used to live, like 2 places back, outside, I don't know what was dangerous about it, but I always drive super carefully when I go down that road because constantly there'd be cars crashing into each other. There was like this weird junction, but it wasn't that weird. It was like a curved road, and then there was a junction that came onto it, and always there'd be like, psh, and you're like, oh yeah, another crash. Government never did anything about it. It's still exactly the same as it was. Why not introduce like a better, or traffic lights maybe, so people stop constantly crashing their cars into each other, government? Come on, get it together. It's not that hard. Like, just a traffic light. It'll be good. There'd be much less accidents. After all, you wouldn't want to be sent up a steep hill in the ice and snow. But Microsoft included some other factors in their calculations as well, like crime statistics and demographic information. Demographic information is like, what car do you drive? Bentley. Well, we're going to have to reroute you because you don't want to drive through that neighborhood where the poors live. The patent was granted on January the 3rd, 2012, and thanks to that little detail, by January the 9th, it was already being reported by news outlets across the globe as the Avoid Ghettos patent. The thing is, the patent was extremely vague. They obviously weren't going to include their entire algorithm. It was just a brief summary of the factors that would be taken into account. But that was worse, especially since they mentioned demographic information as a factor, because it left everything open to people's imagination. Exactly. Was the app only going to direct you away from areas where there was an armed robbery in progress, the same way it would steer drivers away from currently gridlocked traffic? Can you imagine like ways for walking? It's like report event, and it's like armed robbery in progress, murder. Like, how about instead of being like reporting it in ways, phone the police? Or was it just going to have pedestrians avoid any neighborhood that Microsoft thought had a few too many black people? We never got the answer to that question because Microsoft's official policy was not to comment on submitted or approved patent applications, but considering the massive amount of negative publicity that they were getting over this patent, you'd think they would have addressed it. Yeah, also this does feel like the media just blowing something up. Then again, maybe they wanted to keep their mouths shut and let people worry about an app they believed was promoting systemic racism. If the routing system was designed in good faith and was intended to keep people away from active crime rather than actually being an Avoid Ghettos app, it was to Microsoft's advantage to let people focus all of their attention on manufactured outrage. That way, they wouldn't read further into the patent and find a little detail that was barely reported on. Ooh, further down in the description of how the algorithm was going to work, the patent stated various features can integrate with route presentment. That is such a patent word, like presentment. That is like, it's like one of those words that lawyers charge you more for.
Permission to say lawyered? I'll allow it. Lawyered.
Such as integrating an advertisement targeted to a pedestrian with a directions set. What did I just read? While the previous portion of the algorithm was only potentially problematic, this one almost certainly was. It definitely sounds like Microsoft was saying that rather than ensuring that you were given the shortest possible pedestrian route, you would instead be given the shortest route that also took you past whatever billboards or stores they wanted you to see. Oh my, that's clever. Oh, I love that. They could also potentially show you an advertisement. It'd be like, for me, they'd just be like, well, we know we got to get an affiliate deal with KFC. They will just route Simon past all the KFCs, and they'll be stopping in there for a chicken sandwich, a little bite of the fried chicken there, a little bit of chicken popcorn there. Be like, yes, please. I like this, Microsoft. I want to be victimized in this case. They could also potentially show you an advertisement for something in the app moments before you walked by it. For example, if Google knew from all your data that you're a fan of I'm having a stroke up here. A frequent eater of burritos, it could send you a minute or two out of your way to ensure you walked past Taco Bell while flashing ads of freshly cooked burritos and tacos. And speaking of burritos, Eddie, please don't fuck your burritos. Okay, how did we get here? In 1983, Eddie Bernal was granted patent US 4399156A. for his readily portable burrito. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, burritos are already readily portable. And, as a general rule, you'd be correct. But Eddie was taking the portable to a whole new level by introducing the burrito on a stick. Because why not make the already handheld meal of a burrito less convenient by introducing a piece of wood that you have to eat around?
No ball, stick.
How's that going to work? Burritos are big, and they're made of many constituent parts. You'd have to have like the tightest wrapped burrito ever. Originally, I wasn't going to say much about this particular patent. It's hilariously a bad idea, and it's crazy that the patent office, oh yeah, all of these were accepted. Actually accepted the patent for a burrito on a stick. Most of the patent application is just basic instructions on how to assemble and cook a burrito, but this time you do it with a stick inside the tortilla as well as the regular food items. Eddie even acknowledged that the filling of a burrito is squishy, if not juicy, causing people to eat them over a plate out of necessity. It's like he recognized that his burrito on a stick plan was just going to cause a lot of dirty shirts and food falling onto the ground. However, I think Eddie's choice of words in this application accidentally revealed how he came to the idea in the first place. The first sentence of his application reads, "The invention..."
You idiot, you can't read!
This invention relates to a portable food item, and more particularly to a Mexican-type food item, including a burrito mounted on an elongated member. Either is that lawyer speak, or is he talking about cock? Additionally, no less than 3 times throughout the application, there is some variation of the phrase "substantially rigid elongated member." While this potential origin story makes me a little uncomfortable, like my uncle DGR always used to say, every hole is a chance for glory. Okay, that's your weird uncle. But even though I know it's not actually the case, part of me wants to argue that Eddie's invention was the single most brilliant attempt at patent trolling ever. Just imagine how much money a person could make if they could sue for every patent infringement every time somebody stuck a substantially rigid, elongated member inside something that was squishy, if not juicy. Please tell me that was intentional. That's incredible. You'll be looking at the world's first trillionaire, and that's where we end today's video. Thanks so much for being here. See you next time. Maybe, if you liked it. If not, I won't. In which case, I'll miss you. F*** the honor system.